Hello there folks, Robin Nichols back again in the Regent Street Theatre, or the Regent Theatre in Country, New South Wales. It's a beautiful old Art Deco theatre that I photographed one evening, and here it is. I thought it was rather nice actually. The sky's pretty good, but I'm going to show you how to replace the sky. I found a sky here that was shot in a different city at a completely different time in a much lower resolution camera. So you can see this is a little bit sort of yucky. It was a JPEG, it's only a 14 megabyte file, so it's very, very ancient, but it's going to do the trick, I think. It's got a bit of pink in it, so that's really what I was looking for, to simulate the look of that. The trick with this sky replacement business is to have a library of your own skies to do that. And you know, most of us just don't do that. So you need to, when you're going out with your camera, go out and find some clouds. And as you can see here, I've got a whole bunch of them, and you can just photograph them. Good clouds, bad clouds, grey clouds, rainy clouds, snowy clouds. That's just some of them there. And you'll end up with a nice little library. But just point the camera up when you're out in the shopping centre, when you're on your way to work, when you're out and about at the weekend, that kind of thing. Second thing I need to do is duplicate these layers, because we need to actually slide that new cloudscape underneath the Regent Theatre, because if I just slap it on top, it becomes kind of hard to control. It's much better to delete the sky that we've got here and then slide the new sky in. So I'm just going to duplicate the layer. You know, you can have one or two duplications, depends on how you feel, but it's always good to start off with a duplicated layer. I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool to select this, and Magic Wand tool is down here. And the Magic Wand tool is very cool because it allows me to select according to wherever I click. So if I click on the blue pixels here, it'll grab a whole range of blue pixels. It hasn't grabbed all of them because the sensitivity of the brush is not turned up. But as you can see, there is a little plus sign next to the cursor here. So that means if I then click on something else, it adds to my current selection. And you'll note in the tool options that there is an add button and there's actually a subtract button. I prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts, which is simply holding down the Shift key or the Alt Option key to go minus. So Shift is add, Alt Option is to go minus. Or you can just click here, it doesn't matter which way. The tolerance level is set to about 32, that's pretty good. And then I'm just going to click on the bits that I've missed, click, 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 and this is going to take me all of 2 minutes to select more or less, making sure I get the bits that are under the cable there, under the telephone wire or whatever it is in the corner. And there's a few sort of errant clouds. Now, I'll show you another technique which is very cool. This is called Quick Mask. Well, actually, it's not called Quick Mask in Photoshop Elements. It's called Quick Mask in Photoshop. So while we're in the selection brushes area, there's a thing here called the selection brush. And that has two modes. It's got a selection mode and it's got a masking mode. And the masking mode allows me to see the mask that I've just created. So I can instantly see, you know, I've got a problem with the telephone cable going across to the left there. I've got something floating in the sky above there. So again, if I zoom in, again, if I want to erase, I hold the Alt Option key down and then just paint it. And so it erases whatever I've over-painted. I think there's a bit, I thought there was a bit up there. No, that's all pretty clean in the sky. So you have to do a lot of paddling about. There's another one. I'm holding the Alt Option key down, click, just to erase that bit in the sky, and I think this looks like it's a bush or something. Oh, there's something growing out of the top of the building here. So I might, let's have a look, I might choose a big fat square brush for this little operation. I think we've got some square brushes down the bottom here somewhere. No, we haven't. There we go. Well, I could go and find a square brush. Wet media, there's a square brush. I just choose one of these. Just to get, whoops, I'm holding the wrong key down, so I just need to get a flat line here. I can just do a bit of cheating, there we go. It's a reasonably flat line. Okay, zoom out. Aha, I can see I've missed some stuff on the roof of the butchery, no, the property shop auction house. Okay, so what was the keyboard shortcut there? It was Shift to go plus. So if I, oh gosh, if I go Shift, click once and then Shift, or if I'm very careful, I can draw in a straight line. How cool was that? I need to change this actually back to a nice fuzzy brush. Let's go back to the default brushes and choose a circular brush. This is one of those rare occasions I'd use a hard edge brush because it's a hard edged, I don't know what this is, like a ventilator or something, is it? It's not choosing a hard edge brush here. Why am I not choosing a hard edge brush? Hardness. Let's make it 100% hard, that's better. Okay, and I can go to there. It's hard edge, and I think there's another, I think they're ventilators or something. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. And the only, oops, I missed that. So, you know, I can go back to selection mode. You can see, yes, I completely missed that. So I might just use the magic wand tool to select that again, holding down the shift key. There we go. And I think it was actually over here, it was actually, yes, you can see here, there's a little bit of a mistake there. So let's go back into selection brush mode and have a look at the masking mode. Yep, and I need to hold the Alt Option key down. So you can spend 10 or 15 minutes just messing around with this. I'm going to get rid of that piece of telephone cable. There we go. All right, just to get the selection right. When you've done that, make sure that you choose Select Save Selection. It's very, very important because you may have to go out somewhere and you think, oh, I can't finish this now. So you save the selection and then you load it when you come back in and open the picture up again. So it's very important. So we're still in this selection brush mode. I'm going to jump out of that back into selection mode rather than mask mode. And you can see I've got all the sky selected, okay, plus a couple of the little cables there. That doesn't really matter. We won't bother with those at the moment. And if I press delete on the keyboard, what we should get, I'm hoping we're going to get, is it's going to delete the sky. Now the reason we've got these two layers is when I delete this sky, I'm just left with a cutout of the theatre. And with the cutout of the theatre, what I can do is slide the new sky in underneath it. So think of yourself as sort of building a set or something, and you've got the drapes of the background in the theatre of the sky, and then you've got the cardboard cutout of the castle in the foreground with no sky. So because the sky is behind it, it looks like it's set the scene with a nice sky in the background. Okay, oops, I think we seem to have lost the selection there somehow. There we go, back into here. So if I press the backspace key, if you watch the layer 1 here, press the backspace, it suddenly goes checkerboard. The tricky thing with this is, of course, I've deleted the sky from the top layer, but of course we've got the sky in the background layer. I'll turn the background layer off and then you can see what we've done here. Okay, so what have I done? I've selected the sky, I've gone around and I've changed it from magic wand tool, which is pretty good for general blank areas of the image to select, and I've refined it using this selection brush in its mask mode. And remember, mask mode allows me to add or subtract the mask. It just visually shows you very, very quickly. And of course, if I want to, I can change the color of the mask. So, you know, depending on which bias you are in terms of color, you can have any color of mask you like. But it shows you very quickly the bits that you have selected and the bits that you shouldn't have selected, or the bits that you've missed. And you can use the plus and minus, subtract or add little buttons down here to add or subtract to your mask. Very, very simple and easy. Very powerful tool, actually. I think it's very nice. So there's the selection. I've made the selection, I've saved it, and now I've pressed backspace and I've deleted it. Prove it to yourself by turning that bottom layer off. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to lose the selection now for the time being. I need to go and get my other image, and I need to select it all, Control or Command A. I need to copy it, Control or Command C, and then I need to paste it, Control or Command V. Now, of course, when you paste it, depending on which layer you've got active in your master background layer, it's going to paste it. In this case, it's pasted it on top of everything else. So suddenly you think, oh gosh, what's gone wrong here? And you can see clearly that it's on top in the layer stack. So I just click and drag it down the layer stack, and lo and behold, it appears as if by magic in the background. Okay, very simple. So now we get an instant view. Number one of, is my selection any good? Number two, does the picture that I've chosen for the new sky actually fit in with the original? It fits in quite well, considering it was shot nearly 800 kilometers away and about 6 generations of digital cameras prior to this one. It's quite an old picture. I think it was from a 5 or 4 megapixel camera, would you believe? But I still use it today. So I'm thinking that's pretty good. So the final thing here, or there's a couple of final things. If you really want to be pedantic, you can zoom in and just check out those edges to make sure that the edges are actually nice and clean. If they're not, of course, I can be on layer 1 here, on the theatre layer, and I can literally just erase using my brush. Now, you may find that sometimes when you're erasing, whoops, I've gone off to the wrong layer here. You may find that when you're erasing, as you can see here, you can see the edges of the brush. The brush needs to be set to brush mark, and I'm just wondering, you know, if you get this step and repeat symbol sometimes, if you're using, whoops, if you're using the wrong layer. In fact, I'm just going to turn these two off and we're going to erase this. if you're doing something like this, it may be because you're in pencil mode or pencil type. Okay, we need to be in brush type. Brush is much smoother. Okay, so brush is much smoother. All right, but I've got a very hard edge brush. So if I choose one of these fuzzy brushes, just double click it, you can see now it's very fuzzy. Oh dear, it's now thinking I keep jumping from layer to layer. So I've got a soft edge brush, very fuzzy brush, and now you can see that is very, very smooth. Now if you're having problems with the brushes, as Catherine clearly has been having problems, just check that you've got all these set right. So the opacity, that's basically the effectiveness of the brush. So 100% means it's going to erase 100% of the pixels, oops, let's do this again, like this. You know, you can see it immediately deletes everything. 50% is going to do, I keep clicking on the wrong background here. 50% just a gradual one. Okay, so that's a no-brainer. The size, obviously the size of the brush is relative. I use the square brackets on the keyboards to change the size of my brush, and then the brush picker is also very important. I would avoid using some of these more fancy esoteric ones because they do give a jittery sort of finish and scratchy finish, and they're very good for arty kind of effects. But for this, you just want one of these soft edge brushes. I don't know why they put so many in, because they're all the same, airbrush soft. They're just bigger. All right, so I just choose one and then modify the size to taste. Make sure that the type of brush you're using is a brush, not a pencil or a block, and that may be, again, where you're going wrong. It may be something that's causing a problem. It may give you this sort of jittery kind of look. You can also go to you can reset it. So if you're having problems, you can just reset the tool. I think that might be a very good idea in case you've accidentally engaged something else. And use the default brushes. We have dozens and dozens of other types of brushes, some of which are really good, some of which don't work terribly well in some contexts. So, you know, make life easy for yourself. Make sure you've got everything is reset, and then I think you should be okay. And that's all about brushes. It's very important. In Photoshop, you have much more control because, of course, people use airbrushes or, you know, styluses, which work like an airbrush to control or paint with brushes. And so that's a little bit more relevant to the exercise. So if I turn my sky back on and I turn my nice theatre shot back on, I'm going to just apply a levels change to the theatre. I think I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to use auto. Auto doesn't do anything at all. Maybe just brighten it up a tiny, tiny bit. Okay. So then I'm going to go on to layer 2. And this is what I showed Dan. Very, very important. Again, a levels change. And here is where we get the chance to try and make the sky appear as though it's pretty much the same. If you make it really dramatic, it's just going to look a bit weird, because clearly, you know, you're just making it look as though it just doesn't fit. So if anything, you probably want to make it a little bit lighter, so that it doesn't stand out as being, you know, super, super real. It's a little bit hard with this one because this is actually the original picture here. The theatre photo is an HDR shot, so it's a little bit dynamic anyway. So you can make, for example, the output levels, and this makes the black grayer and it makes the white grayer. So basically lowers the contrast. So you could try messing with that until you're happy, and I think that's, you know, reasonably good combination. Okay, you know, and that's before, that's afterwards. That's before, that's afterwards. So I was just lucky to find a cloudscape in one of my little collections here that fits. But I hope that helps you. I hope that throws a little bit more light on how to do it. Watch those layers all the time. Watch those layers all the time, because you need to be, and it's very, very hard. Here's another little tip as well. If you're using the layers, of course, which you are, don't have auto select layer switched on. I'm in the move tool here, and you can say, look, don't bother about auto select layers. And that means that you physically have to click on a layer in order to then work on it. Sometimes the auto select layer button is a little bit tricky, because as you can see here, it changes very easily depending on where I click in the photo. So you'd be working away and then suddenly realize you've erased the wrong layer. So in the move tool options, auto select layer off. Hope that helps.